Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming this evening and giving up your time to learn a bit more about the membership process and DBS specifically. So I'm Grace, I'm the Membership and Groups Coordinator here at Woodcraft Folk, and with me is my colleague Natalie, who is our Memberships Assistant. So without further ado, we'll get into the slides. Right, so the aims of the session today are we're going to look at the basics, which is who needs a DBS or PVG certificate. If someone's perhaps got a certificate from another organisation, what does that mean for you as membership secretaries? We'll look at the DBS and the PVG application processes as a bit of a refresher, and then using First Advantage and how that platform works to process those DBS applications. The next thing we'll look at is the update service, that subscription service, and then we'll just have a slide on various resources, which will be handy for you to have, and we'll keep any questions for the end. All right, so DBS and PVG, who needs one? Well, there are three key categories of people who need them. So firstly, volunteers who regularly help out in a group or plan to attend overnight stays. Regularly is the key word. You know, if someone's sort of coming for a one-off, you know, it's probably best to supervise them in that capacity. Perhaps they're at a taster night, for example, but perhaps they're not helping out in that example. But if they were coming along regularly, they do need an enhanced DBS if they're working with children or young people, and for obvious reasons, those who will be staying overnight. If someone hasn't got perhaps that enhanced DBS and, you know, it's a camp, perhaps they leave at 6 o'clock in the evening, you know, before the overnight hours start. DS, who are going to be taking on a role of responsibility at group nights or camps. You can apply for a DBS or PVG for them. And then group and district office holders. So you yourselves as membership secretaries will have your enhanced DBS, I would hope. In terms of who wouldn't need an enhanced DBS, it would be adult volunteers who are not taking on that sort of one-to-one care. And as I said, they can be supervised in that capacity by another member who's enhanced DBS checked. But just important to note those three categories of volunteers or members who need that DBS to be in date. I'll pass over to Natalie for this slide.
Great. Okay, so quite often volunteers might have a DBS from their employer perhaps, or a different organisation. So the first thing we need to know is whether the DBS is enhanced. So you'll need to look at your volunteer's paper DBS certificate. Maybe they've sent you a scan initially, and just really check that it's the enhanced DBS check, the children's barred list, that it's not expired. And also that it has a subscription to the update service. So this won't be on the paper certificate, and quite often the volunteer might not actually know if they're subscribed or not. So in that instance, you can just, you know, send us an email and ask if we could check. But those are the kind of the three things that we need to see, is that it's enhanced, not expired, and it has the subscription to the update service. So membership secretaries will then need to verify the identity of the volunteer, you know, with the usual documents, you know, for the DBS guidance. And we also need to make sure that we have permission from that volunteer for us to run a check on the update service. So when they register as a member, they can opt in. I think it's best really just to kind of reconfirm that with them, and just sort of ask, so that when you know, that there's no sort of confusion, or that they really know what's going on. So they give permission, hopefully, for us to run the check. So those are sort of the conditions. And I'll go quickly to PVG. So the conditions for this is that the volunteer has access to their PVG membership details. They would have been asked to sort of set this up initially from Volunteer Scotland. They'll need their identity and documents to be verified by a membership secretary, in a similar way as DBS. PVG do have their own guidance on the Volunteer Scotland website, which you can have a look at. And the application form will need to be completed. I'll go into detail on the application form in another slide. So in both those instances, DBS or PVG, once that sort of criteria has been met, you can send an email to membership@woodcraft.org.uk, and that will reach me and Grace. And for the DBSs, that's then when, if we've got the permission from the volunteer, I'll go on to the update service and run a check just to make sure that it's there's no information on there and it's clear, and everything is okay with that. If it came back clear and it's all in date, I would then add the information onto the volunteers record on group, and I'll go through the PVG process in a minute. Right, so the PVG application process, first of all, the membership secretary would need to go onto the Volunteer Scotland website and download it's just a Word document, the application form. I will show you what that looks like in a minute. Then the membership secretary will verify the applicant's identity using the guidance, so that's like identity documents, utility bills, that kind of thing. Complete the table on the application form. So it's just a few columns with general information, what kind of role they'll be taking on, etc. And then send that to, again, membership@woodcraft.org.uk. So then it comes to us on the membership team. We fill in the remainder of the form, just do like a check. And then we send that off to Volunteer Scotland, who they then start that process. Once we receive the copy of the certificate in the post, which should get sent to Woodcraft's address in Manchester, and we would then add the PVG details onto group. And we would be in contact with the applicant and the membership secretary if there are any questions or issues, or maybe if you're trying to, assess the status, and we'll sort of be that liaison between Volunteer Scotland and the volunteer. So the volunteer will need to provide their identity documents to the membership secretary. And once the application has been sent to Volunteer Scotland, they will receive an email to their inbox, and that's for them to follow the link and sort of set up their membership. And I also get an email that says we have sent the email to the applicant. So I tend to kind of email the volunteer from us as well, just in case they're not sure who Volunteer Scotland are, or think it's, spam or something. Yeah, so this is the volunteer application form. So all the membership secretary needs to do is the table part. So you can ignore, the organisation name, enrolled body code, that's all for Woodcraft Folk head office. And there's an example on every single application form when you download this red text, and that sort of gives you a guide of how to fill it out. And if you're ever unsure about anything, you can just, again, email membership@, or you can contact Volunteer Scotland directly. They're really friendly and get back to you really quickly. Right, the DBS application process. So the volunteer will need to have registered on group as a national Woodcraft Folk member, first of all. Then they'll be liaising ideally with the membership secretary. Sometimes they will start the process on their own without having contacted anyone in the group or district, that happens as well. And they might email the membership team so that they can get the secret word to go forward with the application. So they'll complete the application on First Advantage, and they need to have their identity and their documents verified by the membership secretary. So on the district's end, they'll get a notification that there's an application ready to be verified, but it might be that, the volunteer comes to you at the beginning, maybe asking for some help with that initial application process. So, we'd ask you to sort of help them through that. We also do that if they contact us. So I'll, guide them through that. Also our volunteer, Veronica, she does that on the phone as well. So the membership secretary then will verify the identity and documents on First Advantage and submit the application, and also respond to any queries from Woodcraft Folk. And then over to us at Woodcraft Folk. So every week I download a report from First Advantage, which shows completed DBS certificates. And that's then when I will look through, see what the status is, and add those details onto the group record for the volunteer. So ideally, the volunteer will have already completed all the membership registration, including choosing what district and group they're in. That would be the ideal. Because then I can copy that information down and you can view it at a district or group level. So that will be updated on group. And then say if the status comes back with anything other than clear, say if it says see paper disclosure, we will make contact with the volunteer and the membership secretary, asking to see the paper certificate, just so we can do a risk assessment to see what's on there.
Okay, thanks for that, Natalie. So I'm going to be talking through using First Advantage, and that applies to England and Wales. As Natalie just mentioned, we use PVG for Scotland. So all DBS applications are now processed for Woodcraft Folk through First Advantage, that's who we've contracted with. If you've been in the organisation a while, you may know that previously they were called GBG, but we now know them as First Advantage. The best resource on our website, as I'm sure you're aware, is woodcraftfolk.uk/resources/applying for a DBS certificate. And what the applicant is going to need from there is firstly the district PIN when applying. The district PINs are available in a document on this applying for a DBS page. It lists all the districts, and it's usually, I think, a 6-digit number. And the applicant will need that when applying. Just make sure that they then sit in the right district so they can be verified by the right person. The secret word, or not so secret word, we use is ICAMP. So as a membership secretary, that may be something that you need to provide to applicants, or else if you can't remember, just signpost them to the membership team here at HQ. Once they've applied, that whole application will then come to you as the membership secretary for the verification of their ID, and ultimately, the application approval or rejection for whatever reason. And from there, the process is simply that the DBS certificate is issued and Woodcraft Folk HQ are notified. We get a list of those applicants who have been approved, their DBS number, their expiry date. And again, as Natalie mentioned, if there are any issues, it'll have a little bit more detail on there, perhaps that we need to refer to the applicant, or it might give us a few more clues as to that. So for applicants, this is what stage 1 of the process looks like. As membership secretaries, you might be used to, your screen, for example, on First Advantage, but this is what it looks like for the applicant. So step 1, they've got to pop in that 6-digit organisation PIN, which differs per district, name and email address. And then the next step is the secret word, they can't get through without that. And then they need to create a secure password. And they're just reconfirming as well that Woodcraft Folk is the organisation, the body, with whom they're applying for the DBS. As they're a volunteer, obviously it's free of charge and of no cost to them. So this just helps to confirm that. For membership secretaries or verifiers, this is what your screen looks like. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but to have a look at any applications that are awaiting verification, you simply click on that tab, and it would come up with the names of people below who are awaiting sign-off and verification of those ID documents. Okay, the update service. So the update service was introduced in 2013 by DBS, and it was really introduced to help keep members' DBS certificates up to date so that they can be used by different organisations. And that's in theory what the goal was with it. I'm going to run through a couple of benefits, but also some considerations with the update service. It's perhaps not a perfect system, but it does go some way to helping keep things updated. So the benefits of the update service, in theory, as I said, great. You only need one DBS check per person. So that's going to help cut down on the amount of money organisations need to spend on processing DBSs, which is fantastic, especially as a charity. It allows us to put those funds elsewhere. An organisation can then easily check the DBS every 3 years to see if there has been any change to the criminal record. And ultimately, it's less hassle for the volunteer or applicant. If they're volunteering at multiple organisations, they needn't apply every single time, have their documents verified every single time. They can simply almost port it through the update service, if you like. And the update service is also free of charge for volunteers. Considerations, as I said, I don't want to call them sort of pros and cons, but considerations is definitely the word. The update service does require the applicant to opt into the service, to the subscription, and that doesn't happen automatically when applying for the DBS. So it's something that they actively need to opt into. So they must opt in either while the application is in the processing stage or within the 28 days of their certificate being issued. And they're really strict on this. There isn't any other way around it. So it has to be while it's processing or within those 28 days of it being issued. If a member has subscribed to the DBS update service using a DBS certificate from a different organisation, you as their membership secretary will need to verify that original certificate, and that can be done either through an in-person meeting or else on a video call so that you can see that. Unfortunately, photocopies of the DBS certificate aren't acceptable, just as the same for any ID documents you're verifying. Opting in, they can go to this address online. They will need their application reference number, which they'll have if their application is still in the processing phase, or if it has been issued, they can use their certificate number. Excuse me. Alternatively, they can email us at woodcroftfolkhq at our membership email address, and we can opt them in to that service instead. Okay, in terms of resources, so we have some fantastic resources on our Woodcroft Folk website, and my tip of the day would really be to use the search function as much as possible, and that's with that little sort of magnifying tool which I've highlighted there on the screen. If you were to search for DBS, it would come up with a whole host of resources. These are just 3. I think there's at least 12 that I could see relating to DBS once you've submitted that search. So we do have some brilliant tools on there. Any webinars that we run on DBS, for example, are all saved on there, so you can watch the replay if necessary. If you can't remember any links from today, not a problem. By the time we've edited the video and got it up online next week, you'll be able to go back in and have a look with a fresh pair of eyes. We've got information on the update service scheme. We've got information on sensitive DBS applications. For example, applications of transgender people can be considered sensitive, and we've got a lot of guidance on there regarding that too. And then, yeah, just some sort of extra resources for you at the end. If you're doing the online registration, the top link here is where we would direct the applicant to register. The DBS service, they always have up-to-date guidance on that government webpage. And the best email address, if you are ever in doubt about sensitive applications, is the sensitive@dbs.gov.uk email address. And for PVG, it's Volunteers Scotland. That's your best resource for that. Perfect. And I think now I will hand over for any questions that anyone has. We've tried to keep it short and succinct so as not to be overwhelming. But if you have any, in-depth questions, please feel free to ask.
I had a couple as I went through, and I'm probably going to forget them now.
Yeah.
Some were answered. First of all, I've had a situation several times where people have applied and they haven't put the district. They haven't aligned to the district. So when I've spoken to Veronica, they've ended up in this big pot. So is that something that if I know that I've got someone that's recently applied or joined, is that something I can go on to group and amend and put Walton in, or do I need you guys to do that?
Unfortunately, we'll have to do it on our end, because most of the time when that happens, they've put in the sort of general Woodcraft folk number, which is for like staff, which has happened before. Unfortunately, I'm not able to just move it to the correct district. So either, you can contact me and I can do the verification process, or I can cancel it and they would have to reapply with the correct district pin.
Okay.
Yeah, it's annoying that I can't just ping it over.
Yeah, I've had that happen in the past a few times. So
yeah,
it causes problems. I know that you're going to upload the recording of the webinar. Yeah. Are the slides available separately? Because I actually am a bit old-fashioned and I like to have hard copies in my membership secretary folder.
Not a problem. So I have had a request recently to start adding those where we have got slides like this. I'm going to see if I have the functionality on the website to do that, Nikki. I'm sure we can. And failing that, I will email them to you. Okay.
Lovely. Perfect. All right. It's just really helpful then, because they've got key information.
Yeah.
It's just useful to have.
No problem. Anything else pressing? Jane, have you got any questions at all? If you don't, that's also absolutely fine.
Yes, I do. Do I understand then? So the people that need to join, in my wood chips group, all the parents, one parent, sometimes two, come along and accompany their wood chip. So do they need to join? I mean, I know if they come on camp, they do.
Yeah.
But they're not really, I'm taking the session, they're just there helping, supporting their child, that sort of thing. So, but they may be, coming regularly for a few terms. So in that situation, would you recommend they join, or is it okay if they don't?
So it's difficult without being there and seeing how involved the parent is, to be honest. If you're there in group session and there's a good ratio, the correct ratio of adults to children and young people, and you've got that ratio intact, I think that unless those people are committing to actively helping properly, and not just their child, they're helping the general group, there isn't a need for a DBS. And I think before something like Common Ground, there was a bit of a panic from people going, oh, I've got parents who have come to 2 or 3 sessions, is that regular? Do they need a DBS, if they're just coming for the day at Common Ground and things like that? So my gut instinct would be no, but you will know if they're helping regularly and helping the group in a wider sense than just their child.
Sorry, Jane.
I was going to say they're all very good and they do help the group in a general sense, but they're never one-to-one with other children.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, so I've put in the chat just a link to our vetting procedures, and in that document it sort of says what those roles or activities are that would warrant someone needing a DBS. So yeah, I think generally for parents, you know, we would encourage them to become members if they'd like to, obviously, because that would be great, but they're definitely not required to, as long as they're not undertaking those sort of one-on-one roles.
That's exactly it. They can be
yeah.
a supervised member if you like.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. Great question.
Thanks. Mhm.
Any more for any more where you've got us here?
Oh, I just thought I would you be able to go back to the slide where we're talking about the update service?
Yeah, certainly.
Well, I think forward, I mean.
Hang on, might be easier.
I'm asking a question about our slides. I'm not asking a question. I was just going to clarify something.
There we are. Is this the
Yes, that's the one
you're looking for? Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I've got to go through all the clicking. Right, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to sort of clarify about the opt-in, that the easiest way really is for the volunteer just to email membership@woodcraft.org.uk, and that's the sort of one I would just say it takes the less time for them. It takes us like 1 second to add it onto group, so I would say that's kind of like the first point of call, just to make it easier for everyone.
What I would say is when we first switched the system, because I'm so old that I used to do the very manual paper system before we switched. So it's taken a while because we're a very old, big district. And I think I've got 28 registered members with DBSs. We make everyone have a DBS because you never know when they're going to go and do a toilet visit, or they're suddenly going to come to Cudham for a couple of days and then you've forgotten that they're not registered in time.
Yeah.
So everyone that helps out in Walton has a DBS. And it took ages with the opt-in service to actually get us there. But now, on a sort of cyclical basis, I've been religious in making sure as soon as I know someone's applied, then to do the opt-in. And the time frame used to be different to the 28 days. And now I've only got one member who we're waiting for her DBS to need updating next year to then go on to the update service, and it makes it so much easier.
Fantastic. I'm so
really
pleased to hear that, Nikki. That is honestly the best feedback with regards to the system, and you're using it correctly and it's working for you.
Yeah, you have to be really on it in the early days, but once you get there, it just makes my life and their lives so much easier, because we don't have this mass panic of, oh my God, someone's has expired, or we've got to go and start from ground zero again. Particularly because for Walton District, we've actually got a lot of members who have since moved away and they still come to camps and things. We've got people all over the country that are part of Walton District. So it just makes it much easier. So it's worth sticking with that. Because then you get there and say, I've just got one person left now who in February will be signed up to the update service.
Fantastic. What an achievement, actually. That's really brilliant.
Yeah.
So, how are you finding it, Jane, in your district?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'm actually very new to it. I've only just become membership secretary in the summer. And so my comment would be, I can't even remember the first, what's it called? First Advantage.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was really a bit complicated for me. So I just went to their help. And this really nice man, I think he was called Barry, he just like took over my screen and like, I was like, because I was like, I've no idea how to do this. But he was really helpful and really explained it all in a lot of detail and really helped me. So that was really, really good. So, you know, I got a bit more confident there. But also, I would say that, like, I've emailed you guys a little bit and Veronica, and it's been really, really helpful. I mean, Veronica, I tend to email Veronica, and she's like, answers me straight away, and she's really
amazing.
She's very
really
patient with me
as well.
and she explains the system, and you know, we do it this way. So you know, I do feel very supported, and so that's you know, that's really helpful as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, it makes us feel very warm and fuzzy inside, and we'll certainly pass both of your feedback on to Monica as well, because
please do.
Thank you so much.
If there's ever anything I don't know, and it tends to be really unusual and normally, I had a few before Common Ground, guaranteed Veronica knows.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we contact her all the time because she knows more than everyone.
Fount of knowledge, isn't she? So
yeah, for sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think, let me just go back to.
Oh, I just wanted to say as well that on that sort of weekly process where we get the new DBS certificates, that me and Veronica are also quite proactive in asking volunteers who haven't opted in whether they'd like to.
Oh, good.
So they're hopefully getting it from a few different sides.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people don't understand what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. When I joined, I was like, I don't get this. So yeah, hopefully with a few people sort of saying about it, and in the email, we're just that time, it's just asking them that question, so it's not a whole load of information. So yeah, if they haven't opted in, we send them an email, and quite often they say yes. So we're picking up people that way as well.
Brilliant.
That's great.
Brilliant.
In terms of sort of the next training that we have on in this coming month, we've got a grant application workshop, which we've never had before, and it's with my colleague Cece, who looks after fundraising for Woodcraft. It's actually a new appointment for this year. So do mark it in your calendars, basically focusing on how to get extra funds for your group, which is always handy, I think, so that you can go on sort of more camping trips, or purchase equipment that you need, or any of those things. So I think that's going to be a really great practical session. And then Natalie and I are hosting again on the 8th of November a group surgery. So any issues with group, of which there are many, feel free to drop in and we'll try our best to answer.
I'm not an expert on groups, so I will probably join that one.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, I've got 2 people in the district who really sort of got in at the beginning and have sort of nailed it, and hence I tend not to get overly involved, but I need to. So
no worries. Well, any specific questions, it is a surgery, you're very welcome to drop in. I haven't publicised this session yet, but we do keep your eyes peeled for an email. We're going to be I'll be publicising an external webinar from an autism charity, and it's about dealing with and looking after children who are on the spectrum, children and young people within the groups. So yeah, that'll be a fantastic sort of external webinar to come as well. And yeah, just our contact details again, should you need to get hold of us. But thank you ever so much for coming and giving up your Thursday evening.
I'm just sorry that you only had 2 of us. It seems such a waste of resource, but hopefully lots of people will watch the recording for you.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
Don't forget the slides.
No, I won't. I will send those to you now, Nikki. I'll do it.
Thank you. That's
all right. Great. No problem. All right, well,
thanks ever so much, ladies.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening.
Thanks. Thanks, Jane. Bye.
Bye. Bye.